also, this is today is the first time I've been doing any sorts of events after finishing Inheritance, the fourth and final book of the Inheritance cycle. And I'm sorry I don't actually have the book with me today. I'm the author of the book, and I've yet to actually hold a copy of it in my hands myself. So I'm as eager as you to get my hands on it, if not more. But I'm very excited to finally be coming out and talking about the fourth book. And I actually haven't been over to Britain since 2006, when I came over for the movie premiere, which was a surreal experience. I was at the Odeon Theater, so nice event. But in any case, it's really, really nice to be back here. And normally I'd talk for a little longer, but there's a lot of people here, a lot of books to get signed, so I'm going to do two things before I get into that. One, I have a bit of a treat for you guys. Even though Book 4 is not out, I have a bit of an excerpt if you'd like to hear it. Yeah? Okay. This is from the first chapter of Inheritance. And just in case you haven't read the other books, or, Brisingr or Eldest, this doesn't have any spoilers in it, so don't worry. But, first, this is the end of the first chapter. It ends at the end of the chapter. I hope you enjoy it. I really enjoyed working on this book. It is my favorite out of the four books. And I'm very pleased with how it ended, and I hope that you guys are going to enjoy what I did to the characters in the world and all that. Ignoring Eragon's funeral, but... I'm kidding. Actually, I'm not saying one way or another. I did kill a few characters, though, so you'll have to wait to find out who.
How could you?
And by the way, if you're a fan of Murtagh, there's lots of Murtagh in this book too. So. All right. Here we go. The sound was stabbing, slicing, shivering, like metal scraping against stone. Eragon's teeth vibrated in sympathy, and he covered his ears with his hands, grimacing as he twisted around, trying to locate the source of the noise. Saphira tossed her head, and even through the din, he heard her whine in distress. Eragon swept his gaze over the courtyard twice, before he noticed a faint puff of dust rising up the wall of the keep from a foot-wide crack that had appeared beneath the blackened, partially destroyed window where Blodgarn had killed the magician. As the squeal increased in intensity, Eragon risked lifting a hand off one ear to point at the crack. "Look!" he shouted. "Look!" he shouted to Arya, who nodded in acknowledgement. He replaced his hand over his ear. Without warning or preamble, the sound stopped. Eragon waited for a moment, then slowly lowered his hands, for once wishing that his hearing wasn't quite so sensitive. Just as he did, the crack jerked open wider, spreading until it was several feet across, and it raced down the wall of the keep. Like a bolt of lightning, the crack struck and shattered the keystone above the door to the building, showering the floor below with pebble-sized rocks. The whole castle groaned, and from the damaged window to the broken keystone, the front of the keep began to lean outward. "Run!" Eragon shouted to the Varden, though the men were already scattering to either side of the courtyard, desperate to get out from under the precarious wall. Eragon took a single step forward, every muscle in his body tense as he searched for a glimpse of Roran somewhere in the throng of warriors. At last, Eragon spotted him, trapped behind the last group of men by the doorway, bellowing madly at them, his words lost in the commotion. Then the wall shifted and dropped several inches, leaning even further away from the rest of the building, pelting Roran with rocks, knocking him off balance, and forcing him to stumble backward under the overhang of the doorway. As Roran straightened from his crouch, his eyes met Eragon's, and in his gaze, Eragon saw a flash of fear and helplessness, quickly followed by resignation, as if Roran knew that no matter how fast he ran, he could not possibly reach safety in time. A wry smile touched Roran's lips. The wall. As for what happens next, of course you'll have to read the book. Before I start signing, I thought I'd take at least just a few brief questions, and then we can get on with that. If anyone has any burning...
You were first in the queue, so you've definitely earned the right.
I'd really, really like to know what went wrong with Eragon.
Okay, that's enough questions.
Sorry.
No, that's a good question. I totally understand it. Let me say this. I'm very happy that Eragon was adapted into a movie, because very few books ever are made into movies. And, I was extremely fortunate with that. And the film introduced many, many new readers to the series. And for that, I'm extremely grateful. I offered as much input as I could during the creation of the film, but ultimately the movie reflected the vision of the studio and the filmmakers, just as the book reflects my vision of the story. And of course, everyone's free to enjoy both on their own terms. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Thank you. I've had to practice.
Anyone else? See some hands?
Anyone else? Yes.
Yeah. Well, I was here, my little brother, he's just want to tell that he comes from Canary Island all the way to here just to hear you and meet me. And he brought you something that he wants right to his house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to see. Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you. Well, I'm taking that home with me to Montana. That will go on one of my bookcases, right where I work. It's a little top heavy. There we go. Thank you.
Time for one or two more? Gentleman way back there.
Oh boy, that's a great question. How do I keep the momentum going? How do I avoid writer's block? I'd say it's a couple of things. One, with any long project, you sort of have to accept that you're not going to be excited about it every single day along the way. So you just sort of plan for that. And what I do is I plot out my story in pretty great detail before I actually start writing it. And that allows me to avoid getting stuck on the page saying, okay, what happens next? So that's a big one for me. The next one is making sure that I take regular breaks if possible. So, take walks, be with my family, sort of, rejuvenate my creative energies whenever I can. And then lastly, it's writing about things I'm really, really, really interested in. And, I like dragons. I like battles and magic swords and dwarves and elves and that sort of thing. So I'm happy to write about it on a daily basis. And then again, I'm just very persistent with it. So I just sit down every day and I write as much as I can, even if I'm not necessarily feeling thrilled about it that particular day. So maybe two more questions here.
Lady.
Yes.
Why was Inheritance your favorite book?
Why was Inheritance my favorite book? Probably because it's the end of the series, and my latest book is usually my favorite book. Just because I try to improve as a writer, and I think I was able to do some things in this book that I couldn't do before. And two, it is the end of the story, and there's a lot of neat stuff that happens in it, so I'm very proud of it. It's a very intense book, too. Yes?
So what comes after Inheritance?
What comes after Inheritance? A holiday. Well, I have set up in the book, in Brisingr Inheritance, I've set up the framework for several more stories within Eragon's world, if I ever wish to return to it. But the immediate future, I'm probably going to write a bunch of other stories that I've had locked up in my head for the past 10 years. So I have some science fiction that I want to write, fantasy, mystery, thriller, horror, romance, you name it, I want to try it. Probably my next project's going to be science fiction. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be my next project.
Where could you? Yes, you. Yeah.
I was wondering what books inspired you to write and any recommendations?
Any of my recommendations and what books inspired me to write? How long do you have? Well, let's start with the big ones. Lord of the Rings, of course. Dragon Riders of Pern by Anne McCaffrey. Magician and Sequels by Raymond E. Feist. The Memory Star and Thorn Trilogy by Tad Williams. Go read it if you haven't. Wizard of Earthsea and the Two Sequels by Ursula K. Le Guin. The Mabinogian Tetralogy by Evangeline Walton. Top 10 for me. Very good. Dune by Frank Herbert. the Hyperion series by Dan Simmons, the Vermingast trilogy by Merton Peake, the Worm Ouroboros by E.R. Edison, the Redwall series by Brian Jakes, Andre Norton, the Pit Dragon trilogy by all of David Eddings pretty much, except for some of the later books. Let's see.
I hope somebody recorded all that.
I've got it, don't worry.
Am I flattening out? Am I forgetting someone? I know I'm forgetting some authors, but that's a good one. If you like my books and you're looking for something more, I'd recommend Magician, The Lizard Bird Sea, and then the Tad Williams Memory Star and Thorn trilogy, and read those, and that's a good start, and there's many more to explore after that. So, all right.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming, and
couple of things. Well, thank you very much. First of all.
let's find some books.
Okay. 3 points. One is, I hope you can all remember how to get back into the line you were all in. So I don't want any undignified fights on the shop floor. Second point is there's a clipboard going round. If you go on our mailing list, although we don't have the new book yet, we have got book plates so we can get a signed book plated copy, and we'll email you to tell you when those are coming out. And the third point is all of those books he mentioned you'll probably find in here.
That's right.